Good morning. I'd like to call the Wednesday, April 16th Ordinance Review Committee meeting to order for the town of Naples. For attendance, I'm Martina Witz. We also have Larry Anton, Craig Shackness, Jason DiTucci. The town manager is here, Jason Rogers, Kathy Tombarelli, municipal planner, and Keith Matthews, code enforcement officer.
And Mark is walking in the door over there.
Okay, and Mark Clement, our newest member, is apparently walking in as I speak. There is an item on here that says minutes, and we don't have any, but I'll just, for the benefit of everybody, just to remind us, I'll go through what the last time we met, what we did, just quickly, so we all kind of are on the same page. So here's Mark, we just started. That's okay.
We called you in attendance, I saw you walking in the door.
Yeah, we called you to attendance. So I'd like to officially welcome our newest member, Mark Clement, who was appointed the other night by the select board. Welcome, Mark. So in lieu of minutes, I'll just go over what we did the last time we met, which was February 19th. We did not meet last month in March, but on February 19th, we completed the new solicitation ordinance. At that time, we tabled the marine safety ordinance. We completed the definition of a butter for the land use ordinance. We tabled the mobile food vendor, food truck ordinance. And we completed the repeal of the minimum lot size ordinance. We also completed the political signs. Short-term rental is still tabled. And we had previously completed the budget committee ordinance and the kennel definition, adding doggy daycare to the kennels. And we made one more adjustment for LD 2003. So all of those things that we completed in February will actually be on the ballot in May for the voters, and they've since had their public hearings. So that's what we did in February. So today, we have some new business on our agenda, and I'll let Kathy.
I just wanted to back up. We briefly talked about minutes for this group, and you haven't historically done them. What did we decide, or how did we want to approach minutes?
Well, what I had suggested was that maybe rather than take complete minutes, that we take the agenda that we're working from, and then maybe in red, just indicate what we did. Like, did we complete it? Is it continuing work? Just as like what I just read out, so that we all kind of just have a running notation of what we're working on.
So any what we've worked on and any motions, or maybe keep it brief,
Yeah,
something
just
like that.
like if we voted to move it on to the next, to approval from the select board to look at.
Maybe any significant topics of conversation under said item, but maybe not.
Okay, so take the last agenda, use it as a template, and then
just add it.
indicate what was done
Yeah.
and any motions made.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah,
I mean,
makes
just
sense.
more, so it's just a notation for us to remember what's been
It's
going
a way
on.
to keep track of
Yeah,
where
does
we're
that-
at. Okay.
And I'm happy to help you with that too.
Okay.
I know you guys are really slammed, so whatever.
And you're not?
Well, that's okay. And, okay, let the record show that Sue Fleck just joined us too. So, does that mean that we're all here?
I think so.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Okay, so I have Kate here today because there was a couple that she had brought up, and one of them is we get a lot of people asking about farm stands, and we don't have anything on the books. And I don't know how it relates, if it does, to food sovereignty, because I've heard people suggest that it relates to food sovereignty, that people can sell whatever they want out of a farm stand, but I don't know the answer to that question. So I kind of want to loop actually food sovereignty and farm stands together while Kate's here, because she's the one that gets these questions related to those two. I don't really hear much for either one. I do know that other towns do have really minimal standards related to farm stand. You know, it can't be in the right of way. You need to have some place to park, you know, you can't just, that type of thing. I don't know if it's something we're going to do, but we get a lot of people asking about that. I have had a couple, and I know you've had a couple. Can I have a farm stand?
So like if they're selling eggs on the side of the road, is that considered a farm stand?
That's where it gets tricky.
Because we did not have anything in our ordinance, and our ordinance states that if it's not listed currently as a use, then it cannot be a use.
It's prohibited. Yeah.
So we had food sovereignty, And we thought that that would kind of validate that. However, speaking with the state regarding that statute, basically what happens is we cannot go into people's kitchens to do inspections. The state also has no jurisdiction over that due to that ordinance that we currently have in place. I would suggest what we thought originally was basically for farm stands and, canning, things like that. However, we thought that the state would still go into their homes and check out their kitchens where they're cooking these baked goods. And that's the biggest things, baked goods. I cannot go into their kitchen. The state cannot go into their kitchen. So it's kind of a weird situation. I would rather that we do away with that ordinance that's completely separate and just do some type of spec on our ordinance that basically states farm stands. This is what we will allow, and this is how we would go about it.
And I'm kind of looking for the history of this one too. I mean, is it something that there was a big push for? I know there was a big trend several years ago about food sovereignty, and some towns adopted it and some didn't. And so I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can have a consistent answer for people as to what they can do and what they can't do, I guess. So if you know anything, if anybody else knows anything, that would be fantastic.
I had a in-depth conversation with Ben Metcalf from, I think he's from the he's the inspection program manager for the Department of Agriculture. And with the reason that we can't go into kitchens, I'm pretty sure, is because the way our ordinance is written. Our ordinance would have to be written in such a way that it allows people to go into the kitchens. And then they can go into kitchens if there's no food sovereignty ordinance in place. And the conversation that I had with him and my viewpoint on it is that we have code enforcement officers who are the local plumbing inspector, and a soil scientist or an engineer or someone gives them an HHE 200, a septic design, and they go and say, okay, yep, there's 5 rows of pipe, looks like there's pitch here, there's a 1,000-gallon septic tank, and everything's plumbed into the house. That's my understanding of the gist of what that inspection might be. They don't go in with a transit and determine if the pitch on the pipe is right. They don't determine whether the gallons per day is sufficient to the ground soil and how that absorption is going to happen. And so I think that if we were to go the route of altering our ordinance, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that if this comes up in future conversation, how did we get to a place where we might want to change our food sovereignty? Is that if we change our ordinance to put the code officers in the position of going in and inspecting these kitchens, it's not really their area of expertise. Where we, through the state of Maine, through the Department of Agriculture, have inspection program managers who know what they're looking for in kitchens. Business end down on utensils in a container, and pH, they'll take a look at the pH of the cleaning chemicals and things that I don't think that we should be expecting our code officers to enforce. It kind of goes beyond their scope. So, where on a personal level, I want to make sure we have food sovereignty. On a practical level, where we need to have people inspecting kitchens, I think that we should defer to the state and that they have the area of expertise to go in and do those types of inspections. So that was kind of the short version of a 2-hour conversation I had with him. And there's, some simple things that you would never guess, like you can't cook cheesecake in a home kitchen. Cannot happen for resale at all. Nope, can't happen. So there's that piece of it too. And if you do choose to do that, then you've got to send that up to the state lab, and they have to, if there is a food item that is considered hazardous, like a cream frosting on a cupcake, you have to send that recipe up to the state lab, and they have to determine whether that is a safe product, and if it meets certain bacteria criteria. So it allows them to do that type of food safety insurance to the public. So I don't know exactly how we move forward to, my thought is to take a look at the state's food sovereignty ordinance that they provide. It's a CAD one, it's probably what ours is. Take a look at ours and take a look at farm stands and try to ensure the public that we're not trying to restrict food sovereignty, we're trying to increase public safety in the sanitation of the products that they would be receiving, assuming that people have followed this. Because where this all started is I watched a webinar that SBA put on in conjunction with Ben from the Department of Agriculture, and after watching that, you would assume that to sell any homemade product, you had to go through this licensure program. Nowhere in that do they say, oh, if you are food sovereign, you're exempt from this. So that's what I learned.
When this sovereignty ordinance first came up and I saw it, I said, this is terrible. Who's protecting the consumer, the person who buys it? You know, it's like the same people want to sell raw milk. And, lots of problems with that.
Yep.
So the Maine State food sovereignty, I'm not going to say.
I know, it's a hard
That
word,
one.
yeah.
Says that they have to comply with all applicable state and federal food safety laws. So it says it in their ordinance.
Yes, but they
so
don't have to be inspected.
inspected.
And that's the biggest thing.
Are you the health inspector? Or is code enforcement the
So
health inspector in
it has
town?
nothing to do with that. The health inspector, realistically, we don't really have much, it's not the state food health inspector.
I just wanted to
It's a
understand
different-
your expertise in the area, because, Sue said that code doesn't have any experience or expertise, but I thought you.
So we do not, so let's say, Aroma Joe's or Dunkin' Donuts, for example, they just have the state health inspector go in there to check out, all of everything that they changed over. So for these little mom and pop shops, and I think that's kind of what we were getting at, like food stands, as far as maybe even canning, things like that, like eggs, hay. It's almost agricultural, but it's a stand. So I don't have any issue with us putting standards on that. However, I tried to go to somebody's place where somebody was sick after eating baked goods out of one of those stands. And I was not allowed to go into the house. I could tell from looking into the house it was not cleanly. I was not authorized to go in there. I called the state and they said, oh, you have the food sovereignty ordinance, you don't need to go through us, it's all through you, and if you can't get in there, then you already took on that ordinance. So I would rather do away with that and have standards for what we can have as a farm stand. And then anything else would have to go through the state for that.
So we need a very clear definition of a farm stand, which the state does have.
And so I would rather do away with that ordinance altogether, because that's a standalone ordinance, which is kind of, one of those weird ones where we just took it on and we thought we were doing a good thing, but realistically it's not a great thing, because I have no way that I can really have any backup from the state, and they stated because we took on that ordinance. They don't need to inspect it, they don't need to look at it, and they will basically give us no help. And like Sue said, we are not state health inspectors as far as food.
And apparently, liability has never been challenged yet. But,
As of yet,
yeah, but they're saying that towns certainly should have engaged attorneys to determine liability when writing their food sovereignty ordinances.
So if we do away with the food sovereignty, I can't say the word. So we're not taking away the right for producer to consumer sales, because that will be
Right, like
covered under farm stand. So I think that would be
vegetables,
important
it's
to
almost like an
understand.
agricultural food stand.
Right.
Which is what we were kind of thinking, like eggs,
Right.
hay, anything that they grow, things like that, even canning, I think we could ultimately do, but maybe not. It's up to you guys.
But so for health and safety reasons, there would be, obviously for farm stand, maybe there would be some regulations or around where it could be located in a safe situation, right? How far from the road, that kind of thing. But then the actual food itself, we would be considering that we would limit it to the produce that is grown. And you're going as far as like a prepared food, like a canned good, but not a baked good? I do see that there's a differentiation.
Canning usually has a certain process, but that's also another little rabbit hole that we could go down. So I'd rather just do, kind of like what they're growing, what they have to offer directly farm to, their eggs, the hay, things like that, flowers, like farm stand.
Other than the occasional egg stand on the side of the road, the only other one I know of is that Lucky Paws one on 35.
We should not be discussing any particular,
Any what?
any particular stand.
But is
Yeah.
that a farm stand? Is something of, would
Well,
that-
that's up to you guys, whatever you want to define a farm stand as.
I personally think that if we're repealing the food sovereignty, the reason we're doing that is to open it up for state inspection. So if
Exactly.
somebody wants to sell cupcakes,
It would have to
Then
go
they
through
can sell
the
cupcakes,
state's
they just
approval.
have to follow. I don't think a farm stand should be, I'm just thinking of one that's very successful on your way to Rangeley. There's a pie person up there. And it's pretty famous, and, I'm sure that they follow the state guidelines for the kitchen. The kitchen would have to be
Right.
regulated by the state. So as long as within our food or, in our farm stand ordinance, we defer to any product that is regulated by the state must follow their guidelines, however that gets worded correctly. I don't think we have to worry about saying whether they can or can't sell a cupcake. It's just, if you're going to do it, you need to follow you need to prove, you need to submit your
State approval.
your licensure, like we do at the restaurant. We have to submit that we have to get a liquor license, we have to prove that we have the food, the ability to sell food. We have to prove our corporation is intact. We have to do a number of hoops. You get insurance, and so we could maybe take some of the pieces of that liquor license and say, here's the things that, when you come in to apply for a farm stand that's selling anything that's regulated by DHHS, which I did learn that any produce that you grow is not regulated and eggs are not regulated unless you decide you're going to grade them. So I think that's how we cover it, and then it's in the state's hands. And then if we take some of the food sovereignty verbiage and put it into the farm stand one, along with, and then take the farm stand one, then we have it, we're not restricting food sovereignty, we're just asking people to be safe.
think the intent was to make it easier for people to sell their farm goods, right? And it was kind of a buyer beware, this hasn't been certified by anybody, but you can go ahead and sell it, but then it ended up being more complicated than it needed to be, and then it's who's in charge too. I would love to see it embedded in the land use ordinance as a use too, kind of like mobile vendor is, instead of having it standalone, right? And then, like you said, incorporate some of the definitions and some of the good stuff in this, but put it inside there. And then it gives us, and some simple standards for a farm stand, it must be X amount off the road, need to have parking for at least one, that type of stuff. And I don't know, we'll have to get direction from the select board, so we're just kind of putting together whether or not we think we need to move forward, if it's something that we think we should work on, is it a priority? Because we really only have, I know that marine safety and mobile street vendors is one that the select board wants, two that the select board wants us to work on. So I'm thinking like maybe maximum four-ish or five-ish for the next round. Otherwise, we're gonna have too many. So we need to kind of narrow it down to the ones we think we should be working on, present it to the select board and see what they say. But it's just a little weird, because we don't have anything saying you can have a food stand, a farmer's stand, but yet we have this ordinance. She can't go in and do anything. We call the state, they aren't doing anything, so it's kind of like this honor system, buyer beware, weird thing that we don't know what to do with, basically.
Obviously, it has to be, worded correctly.
Yeah.
But, something, no prepared food unless you have, a state food and beverage license.
It's really that simple. Yeah.
I mean, just put no prepared food.
I think we just say whatever falls under the current licensure requirements
that's
by
Yeah.
DHHS. Then if they change
They
that,
change it.
we're still,
And that way
makes
it's not
sense.
it's not a
specific
revisit.
to the
It's just,
exact-
whatever falls under their umbrella, they're gonna handle.
yeah,
However that
exactly.
gets worded right.
I agree with that.
Question, does a
Yeah.
farm stand have to be on the property where the stuff was produced or grown? Or can
Well,
you just put
that's
it any
a
way you want?
great,
I'll tell you what the
Larry,
state
that's
says.
a question.
The state definition is the farm stand means a roadside stand at which locally grown produce is offered for direct sale to the public and that is operated by a farmer or by a person who purchases the majority of the produce sold at the stand from farmers. So it doesn't even have to be the farmer themselves with that.
But we could do
Origin
something
of-
in ours.
Right, so yes, and the origin of the produce, it says produce sold at the farm stand that was not grown by the owner of the farm stand must have the name and location of the farm where the produce was grown affixed to the produce or designed or displayed on a sign in close proximity to the produce. So it goes on, so just reading this again, I read it last night and I'm thinking, do we have to be careful in thinking about, when I think about a farm stand, I think about the farmer having the farm stand, but this actually allows for somebody else to just set up a stand somewhere and go buy the produce from a farm
Yeah.
and bring it.
Or farmers
I
markets
don't-
that are held in the different
That's
towns where they all congregate,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right.
So not that we have to solve that now,
No.
but I don't think a farm stand is necessarily just this quaint little farm stand outside Farmer Joe's farm. It could be other things too, so.
Yes, that's the other thing too with that, fall into the farmer's market stuff, so they wouldn't be able to do.
But so,
Like the
what I'm
big
hearing is our
berries and
ask
big
to the
things
select
there.
board is we would
Right.
like to
It's gonna be big, good
potentially
cookies,
remove
cakes,
food
little
sovereignty
pies.
ordinance, create a definition for farm stand and a use for farm stand, and identify where farm stand can be as a permitted use, and then create some language around how to operate a
So
farm
that
stand.
the town isn't liable if there's any baked goods, because I know for a fact I cannot get into the one place that I had a complaint about. They would not allow me in, and that did not give me the authority to do so, and it did not give the state the authority to do so. So I think we should just do away with that, bring in the best parts of that, and then go from there, and that would make the town less liable.
We should probably be working on both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't want anybody to think that we're taking away rights for having farm stands. We're just,
Yeah.
this should be like a all-together type of an activity.
And I think if you're worried about something commercial like Blackie's over in Auburn, it's a fairly large they have a number of farms they represent, plus commercial stuff. Maybe if you put a volume on that based on sales tax, then if you're concerned about the farmer not being protected, it might be one way to deal with that.
Well, I mean, it's just like, at what point does it become not a farm stand, and is it a full-fledged business? That's the thing.
Yeah, so if
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only regulation would be like sales tax, and they could have that on their license.
Yeah, and Blackie's is very, I love Blackie's, I go there all the time. But, yeah, they're more of a very commercial, it's not connected to a farm. It's just like a commercial, almost like supermarket for a farm stand. It's like
It's a store.
Yes.
That could
It's
be,
retail.
What is
that
the
could be controlled
definition
by
between
square
store and
footage
farm
too.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out what, yeah.
Yeah,
Might go in there.
there's got to be like a trigger that's just like,
Yeah.
okay, you're not a farm stand anymore, now you're something else.
That could be controlled by like square footage of the stand as well. so.
Yep.
Could be, yeah.
I'll look and see what other towns are doing too. But we'll, for first, I think we just leave it, not spend a bunch of time on it, and leave it in, as what we said, potentially remove food sovereignty and work on a new, small, brief, ordinance for farm stands. And then when we get feedback from the select board, we'll see if that's one of their priorities or not. The next one that, this is just cleanup. I actually printed out A, B, and C, the appendixes, from the subdivision ordinance, and they just need to be updated. This is just the way that they look. I mean, they look nothing like what a modern subdivision plan would be, for example. Final plan. I just want to update pictures. And then the geometric standards for streets, I think they're fine. They're just really hard to read. So I would just like to get something that's a little bit more current looking in there. It's not a big deal, but it is a change to the ordinance, so I just want to throw that on there. I don't think it's really a huge deal. The appendix A, when I got here, you couldn't even read it, so I need to check to make sure it's right. I had to go back several ordinances to find it, because it had just gotten messed up through printing, lots of printing and changes. So I just want to clean those up, appendix A, B, and C, and D, and I will bring some examples of what it could look like. But it leads me to another question, and I still can't wrap my head around it. Minor subdivisions and private roads, what exactly are the standards? If it doesn't meet collector or arterial or public road, how are we doing that in
It's
Naples?
in there somewhere.
Yeah,
I can't remember, but I know it's there.
okay,
Well,
Because-
I know subdivision has
yeah,
standards,
it does.
but private roads for like, say, Jay, right here,
Yeah.
bought a property that was like 40 acres and he wants to put down a road, but he only is splitting a couple lots, but it still is something for E911 standards.
Yeah.
Where it needs a road. Are we going by those subdivision standards of a private road, or are we going by?
I just don't know. It's not a
We have
it's not a
lot
driveway.
splits.
It's not a driveway, it's a
Yeah.
road, but what is it, what standard does it need to be
You
built
used
to?
me for that example. I actually went through this many years ago.
Yeah.
I had 87 acres with almost a half a mile driveway. Subdivided 2 lots out on it. I actually had to go to the standards because, for fire department reasons,
Yes.
because there was, I sold lots off that street, it was a right of way.
Right.
And you didn't trigger
If
subdivision.
it was just mine,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had to, but because I sold 2 lots and it was
Yeah.
a right of way, I had to go to
The
town
fir-
state standards.
The road standard. But the first road standard in subdivision is pretty, not significant, super significant, but it is significant. So, and then that leads to,
Yeah.
and then what happens when you got a road already there and now someone triggers subdivision? Are they bringing the whole road up, or just the portion of the road that serves the 3 lots? So the first two, up to the first 2, it's fine, but when you get to the 3, so it's just super unclear to me exactly what is required. Particularly when you've got, I've got one right now, there's no road in this case, but someone doesn't want to wait, so they're doing the 3rd lot. What do they do? What are they required to do? That's where I'm kind of a little bit of in a gray area. So I would just like to spend some time on private roads. I don't want to make it super hard, I just want to make it clear. That's the whole thing, is making it clear so everybody knows, so we're not all looking at each other, what do they have to do? I understand that, the fire chief does have some weigh-in on, whether you can get a vehicle down there. But then you say, oh yeah, grade this and do that. There's really no answer to give people. So this one's a little bit more nuanced, and it's probably something that I need to get more detail to, but it's just something that I need to look at.
I put in a private road while John Holly was here.
Yeah, and how did that work?
There's a chart in our ordinance, and then outside the chart, there is a statement about private roads.
So there's the chart, which is A, it's Appendix A, but that seems to be totally subdivision driven.
Right, so there's that, but somewhere, there's another statement there that talks about private roads. I can't, I'd have to spend a minute looking for it, but there is one, and that road did need to be built to that standard,
Okay.
that I did build that to.
Okay.
Well, there is,
I
that's
don't-
another thing that's kind of weird about us is that we have a driveway entrance ordinance that's standalone. And that might be what you're referring to, because that was when John was here. Board of Selectmen shall determine, site distance.
I don't think it talks about the actual
But
road
does it
standards, more
actually
about
have-
the entrance, drainage and stuff like that.
Pavement, side slopes,
The one thing
driveways.
that wasn't mentioned was a turnaround. And just because I'm big on safety, I put a turnaround in.
I thought it said somewhere now that you can't just have that you have to have at least a hammerhead or something
I
like
think
that.
that's in
doesn't it?
subdivision,
That's in
though.
subdivision, not in
Yeah.
private,
And
okay.
there's many examples of where someone comes in and they're triggering E911, but there's no road standard that I can find. But I need to probably do a little bit more digging. So this might get pushed down to lower hanging for right now, because I need to get you more details, I think.
We do have an addressing ordinance, that talks about E911 standards. Let me see if it actually has.
So according to the definition,
Yeah.
as soon as somebody puts a house, like if you have a driveway and you sell a couple lots off, that it becomes a subdivision.
It depends on, over time though. Sometimes they don't sell the lot right away. So if they wait 5 years, they can divide off another lot. And that's what you see a lot of that here in all the small towns in Maine, where all of a sudden now you've got 8 lots and a substandard road. And then someone wants to come in and do the 9th one. At what point do you say, yeah, no, you're gonna have to bring this road up to standard, I guess is the question. So, and it's not, I don't want to get into private roads too deep, I really don't. And I don't want to make it overly ridiculous, but at some point, it's kind of like, you're given a permit for the 9th lot on a road that's never been brought up to any standard.
Well, I think
We
it
have
does
a
need to
bunch
be
of-
addressed, because obviously
Yeah.
the majority of the roads are private, and,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at what point, you just want to have if you don't have anything that everyone has to meet. it
Right.
just
And
goes
that,
up.
I think it doesn't have to be a super onerous standard, it just
No.
needs to be a standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish
Even
there
across
was a
the board.
standard that had existed when Tricky Pond Road was
Right.
put in, because it's a dead end, there's no turnaround, it's pretty tough back down at the end, and
It's over a mile.
it's over.
Well, that's the thing, is how long can a dead-end road be?
Right.
How
Well,
far-
it says it in the subdivision,
Yeah, it
but not,
does.
yes.
Right. And how many, do you need a turnaround every 1,500 feet? I mean, certain definitions like that. I know, I think it's Gray has something where, and also in New Gloucester too, also in subdivision you don't want them to have to necessarily bring the whole road up to standard, but it needs to be when you hit the X house, or something like, there has to be some sort of guidelines, so that it's the same for everybody, I guess is the biggest thing. It's the same for everybody.
Gray made it so that you had to update the whole entire road.
Yeah, which was
I
ridiculous.
know that up
Yeah.
front and personal,
And
because
I think New Gloucester had something where after a couple of lots, then it would trigger.
A road standard and a
Yes.
turnaround.
this is a very tricky.
It is.
Because I was involved in a situation where there was a road put in, better than a lot of the tarred roads in town, holds up through everything. And there was somebody who subdivided a lot, and it made it so that the person that owned the subdivision, who had one lot left that was planning on using that for retirement, could not do that because somebody else had subdivided, and that triggered the number of houses on the road that made it go to subdivision, and the burden was on them to tar the whole road.
Yeah.
So in situations like these little camp roads, where somebody wants to do, a lot on the other side of the road,
Yeah.
when they have plenty of land to do it, now they're in a situation where they're gonna have to update that whole road that can't even be updated.
Yeah.
I can think of some that I have driven down just recently that are
Yeah,
pretty
like
narrow and
amendment
tiny.
to subdivision plan.
That's where it's getting tricky for me. Amendment to a major subdivision that was approved in 1980 something, right?
Versus-
There's no fire protection and there's no road standard. That's where it gets tricky, and you don't want to make it so onerous that this person that has owned this lot for how many years can't divide off a lot, but at the same time, you don't want to assume any risk to the town for not having adequate water and adequate access. So I think that's really the thing for me is, what is that person that is dividing off the 9th lot in an old subdivision have to do?
It's very expensive,
Yeah, it's very expensive very quickly.
So I personally would like to see it, one of the goals would be affordability.
Yeah.
Safety and affordability, and there's ways to do that without breaking a bank.
Right. Is it great, but it also can't be subjective either, you know what I mean? It's like, to grade it to the greatest extent practicable. What is practicable? I don't know, you know what I mean? So there has to be some standard. It can be a minimum standard for safety, but there has to be some standard.
And we could always say if these lots were created prior to a certain date,
Yep.
or if you go past this point, so we have to think about those type of things. Like this length of road that you're adding in a new lot, they would have to meet, the normal standards to subdivide a lot. However, a lot of those old lots, you can't even subdivide them at this point because they are way too tiny. So they're kind of null and void. So we could put in a certain date, like something in the 80s, it's like, gosh, we already have something for, I think it's 84 maybe, for subdividing and things like that for back lots. We could do something like that, like put a certain date.
So a little more research to try to make it as simple as possible, but take care of
So we should probably read all the references to road standards in the land use ordinance to kind of understand what we're talking
And I would
about.
also like to make sure that it's all the same, consistent throughout the
Yeah.
whole ordinance, and I think that's another thing
Well, I know,
that's a little
'cause
bit hard.
This very thing came up last night, really, at planning board, because
Yes.
it was all the
Yeah.
continuous
Started
subdivision
off
of
with
the,
7 lots, now we're
Yeah.
up to 12.
yeah.
There's no water
And
up
there's,
there.
you can see on the map that it's potential to continue
have more,
the, yeah.
continue and have more lots.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
Yeah, where does-
Without making it a big burden on someone that just
Yeah.
wants to get one lot, right?
Well, everyone just wants the one lot. So, But
I know.
collectively,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what ordinances
exactly.
are about, the
Right.
collective, not the.
I know when I had to do
Always
it,
just one more.
Yeah.
And when you look at those lot sizes, though, those are both four, I think
Those
4
are
acre
Those are
big
large
lots.
lots. You
Yeah.
have more,
Yeah.
and you can definitely have an accessory dwelling on each one of them.
Right,
So
so you can have a
you
lot
can
of
see
turnover.
how it can fill in
Yeah.
over time.
so I know when I had to do it, I had to build the road to like a town road standard. And the
Yeah,
reason
that's-
why I had to do that
Yeah.
is just, which ended up actually happening, if you ever gift the road or turn the road over to the town, they want to make sure it's up to their standard and not have, the town not have to redo the road.
Yeah. So a minimum standard is what I'm looking for. What is the minimum safe standard? Some towns do it by the number of dwelling units, but that makes it a little more complicated. 0 to 10 is this standard, 0 to 20 is this standard, or 10 to 20. so it's a little research, I think, on all of our parts too. So and also is that something that we want to prioritize to ask the select board for November, or is that something that we could maybe wait till next April?
That's really up to you, but
Yeah.
I feel like, from a planning board perspective, we've been getting so many subdivisions lately.
Yeah,
And I just
I've got
feel like
6 on my desk.
Addressing roads is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I think
and
that's a
anything
pretty
that-
important one.
Even if we get it done by November,
Yeah.
obviously it's not going to affect.
Well, I think that's, the thing for me is that I want to be fair to everybody. And I want, when they come in, this is what you need to do. It's just that simple, instead of, looking at Kate and
I
everybody's
think
looking at
roads
each
is a
other.
pretty fundamental
Looking at the road
thing.
commissioner, looking at, what do we do? What do we do with this one? So,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not clear enough.
Roads are fundamental, and I think there should be consistency and clear.
and the goal, we've been working really hard on this as far as water, making sure that there's sufficient water up there.
You mean for fire suppression?
Yeah, for fire suppression.
We have no way to understand the aquifer capacity, which also
Right.
I always think about, but I don't know how we even deal with that, but that's another story.
Okay. All right.
Is that the bullet point update appendix B?
The update Appendix B, I think I got my wrong number. I think it was supposed to be A. A is the, no, actually, that's down on the bottom.
Road standards,
Appendix A is the
yeah.
road standards. B and C are these, B is the geometric standards, which are not legible. I'd just like to clean that up. That's our minor streets. So right now, what we define is minor streets, arterial streets, and collector streets. So I'd just like to clean it up a little bit so it's more legible, but these subdivision plans, these are showing like ones that are not anywhere near what are required today. I think these images are pretty old, so I'd just like to get something updated. Or, do we need to have a sketch plan example? I mean, people that are doing subdivisions know what they're doing, right? I don't know, but it just needs to be cleaned up. Because you're required to have a lot more than that on a final subdivision plan. I don't even know if it's necessary to have the B
Well,
and
that could
C.
be seen as administrative too.
Yeah.
Because it's based off of whatever is voted in, right?
Right.
Like, just as like a photo type of thing.
So I'm trying to think, like, does planning board ever actually look at these?
No.
No, so I've never looked at these. They're hard to read because
I
they're so
think I can see
old.
someone that's doing their third lot, and they're triggering subdivision, they really don't want to, but they don't want to wait. What does a subdivision plan look like? But they're gonna hire a surveyor to do this. I just don't know if they're even necessary. So personally, I think we should have appendix A and
Just
B.
If you just have it in writing, the
Yeah.
survey is gonna
I
follow
think we should
that
have A and then clean up B, because that shows what a minor collector and arterial street is. Even though it's all talked about in A, it's just in writing, not in pictures. I mean, potentially, I think we could get rid of the subdivision ones at all, and all the references to sketch plan and final, what it looks like. I don't think anybody's looking at those.
Doesn't
I
look
like
like
table
anything
A,
does.
yeah. And that's really cleaning it up, but it doesn't fall under administrative because you're actually removing something, but,
Right, that's true.
I don't think I have a.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had somebody come in.
No,
I don't know why it didn't print, because we printed them the same time.
Look at this photo.
He's got A, he's got A,
It's on
so
the
I,
back side.
Yeah, that's like these.
Yeah.
oh, it's on the back side of the front thing,
No, the one
Oh, I
that,
got A.
yeah. A is great, I like it, I like A.
One's A?
Just got the spreadsheet.
I saw that on
This is
Well,
online.
that's
but I didn't
informative.
get a copy.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't have.
That's really
on
all.
the back of the agenda.
And this is just the.
Basically, something like that.
I didn't have any,
yeah.
Yeah, rather than getting rid of the photo.
Change, C,
Get rid of
something like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
And if people ever come in, we always tell them, hey, we already have a bunch of stuff on our website. Take a look at what people have submitted.
Yeah,
It has to be professionally surveyed anyways.
yeah.
Yep.
I think the C can be nixed for sure. B could possibly be cleaned up but I don't even know if you need B. It's in A. That, B, what's on B is in A. That's just a
It's just
visual.
a diagram
It's just a
of it.
diagram of it.
Okay. Well, I think the table is the better way to go.
Yeah.
The other, and I think you kind of mentioned it, and I'll just mention it again, just because I'm reading as approved by fire chief. When I go on the site plan, site walks with the fire chief and everything, and we're looking to see to make sure that there's enough room and everything. I just feel like all of that is kind of loosey-goosey. I would like something a little bit more, I mean, if I were the
Yeah.
builder building a road, I would like to know what I have to provide and not wait for a walkabout when the snow is maybe 6
Yeah.
inches deep, you know?
That's related,
that,
that project,
okay.
is that's related to my comment, is when we go up there and he needs a turnaround, oh yeah, just grade this a little or
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't
No,
think
it needs to
that.
be X feet wide and X
Yes.
feet long and,
Yeah.
have a base of X amount of gravel so it supports a fire truck. I mean, that's simple.
Right.
Whatever that is, and that would be related to private road standard, and that would be related to the turnaround
Right.
requirement.
Yeah, I would
It just
like that.
feels ambiguous to me. On a case-by-case basis, which it doesn't work for
I
me
mean, a
for
fire truck's a
an
fire truck,
applicant.
it needs a
Yeah,
certain amount of room.
that's, Yeah.
Also needs a special road
Right,
for the weight.
right.
okay.
All right. So we actually also just did both.
Yes.
So we've done 6.
Yeah, we've done
Now we're going back
6.
up
Yeah, I
to
should have put
4.
those how
Okay,
related, but,
together.
yeah.
Okay.
And so the only thing left is, the height dimensional standard and cell phone towers are related as well. We just had a cell phone tower go through, and we found that it was a little bit hard to work through because, cell phone towers are taller than 55 feet. So there's no, it's an essential service. Should an essential service be exempt from the height standard, first of all? So that they don't need to get a variance in order to build a cell phone tower. That's the first question. And then the second question is, 55 is pretty tall in a rural zoning district. Right now, 55 is for everything else. And I'm guessing that it's based off of Rick's and because it was probably the tallest building in town at one time when the cupola was on it. And so I'm sure that's what it's based off. And it's also usually based off on if you have a ladder truck or how high is your fire apparatus work. But 55 is pretty tall. If you think about it in a rural zoning district or in other zoning districts. So I guess the question is should we be looking at our height allowed in all the zoning districts, and then should we be creating some semblance of a cell phone ordinance or not? But the cell phone tower ordinance, the thing about it is decommissioning, we don't have anything about what they need for decommissioning. So when they came through, we used the solar farm as kind of a guideline. Is there gonna be tons of cell phone towers coming? No, but so maybe we keep it simple and we just say that it's an essential service, it's exempt from the height standard. Or I put York, the reason why I added York is because York just went through a lawsuit about cell phone towers. So theirs has been amended more recently than other towns. A lot of the towns I looked at were adopted in 2005, 2006, 2010. But York did the most recent update that I could find, which was 2016. And once again, I don't really want to have another standalone ordinance either, so.
I would think that cell phone towers could, if we went with one, the wireless telecom could go into the land use in the same manner
Yeah.
that solar farms are. It would be its own section within
Its
the
own
land
section,
use.
yeah, within land use, yeah.
And then I was just looking at this briefly, I mean, I didn't have much time to look at it because
Yeah.
we got it yesterday and we had a planning board meeting. And then I went to
In the
bed.
same boat.
But so thankfully, I mean, our site plan review is really good. So
Yes.
we could use, I think the site plan section served us well in
It did.
discussing it. But there are a few things that I just noticed just this morning quickly in the York one that are different, that are very unique to wireless telecommunication. For example, just the whole discussion about an overlay district, that would be different. And then because that was my first cell phone tower project that I ever worked on, I didn't even know that there was a difference between a monopole and something else. And monopoles are, I think, better, having done that, looking at them and seeing what they look like. And now I drive around and all I do is look at cell phone towers. I think, oh, that's not a monopole, that looks gross,
Yeah.
And also this whole concept of, because they talked about it a lot, these things are put on schools and they're put other places. So, I mean, just the whole concept of, would we even want to permit, I wonder if you could even not permit a tower to go on an existing structure, or if you did, would that look different? So there are some things that are unique to wireless telecommunication facilities. And I also noticed in here it talks about the road leading up to it would need to be screened, and we were fortunate in the tower that we just had that it was, screened. It wasn't like the tower behind McDonald's in Bridgeton where it's just like in your face, right?
Right.
But, I don't know, so I see some advantages to having something specific for wireless telecommunication.
This was one of the shorter ones, by the way. There are some that are extremely long, it's like, that's too much.
If we don't put a restriction on an essential use, we don't want one of those towers like that's in Raymond that's really tall, sticking up.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I see it every day.
Yeah.
So-
And couldn't you say can only go, whatever height, so ours was currently 55, right? So they had to go higher in order for it to work, but could you not, then, if you had a wireless telecommunication, say you can't go X amount higher than something than the surrounding vegetation? I don't know.
Benchmarks I suggested was whatever the lighting requirement is for the Portland Tower.
Yeah.
Portland
You need to put a light on it?
Because we're within their airspace.
Okay.
Anything that flies over us is picked up on their radar. So they have height requirements. That's why some of those tall ones have the beacons that blink on and off the red lights. So I know that that's one of the benchmarks of that. The other thing that can be a restrictor is the pad size. If you only allow a certain amount of pad size, it can only support a certain structure. In my experience, there was a tower on property that I owned that we restricted the pad size so that they could never expand the size of the tower without having to go, it pushed them to go back to the town.
Is it volume of material in the pad?
To support the,
Not square footage, but the volume.
right,
By volume.
yeah. So, because at that time, that was a long time ago, there were very few restrictions. And those contracts are hundreds of pages long, and they're attorney level to decipher them, and we felt like they might be holy, and didn't want to be in a situation, that particular tower that the family member was living at, they never wanted a flashing. And the best way to curb that was the size of the pad. So, that's just talking of Portland, the FAA there in Portland, finding out what the height is for that might be a guide. Because that would, it's not just the height of the tower, it's the elevation. Right.
Up the hill,
Of the
and
whole
then-
property.
Right, yeah, those ones on Hackers Hill are kind of short in comparison to others because they were meeting height requirements for Portland airspace.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
See, so it took a long ways to get there, but that's what I was getting at, is the top of Douglas Hill, which that's not in our town, but I don't know, the ridge across the lake is pretty high. And so I think that some regulatory that way helps.
I kind of liked when the way they dealt with visual impact. They had a definition of a hidden tower.
Yeah.
And if it's hidden, then only thing it needs to meet is zoning, basically, setbacks, et cetera. I thought that was an interesting way to handle it. If it meets their definition of you can't see it, basically, then you don't have to do a lot of this.
I notice a lot of towns restricting it on their schools because of the emission issue.
It seems we're talking about what's a good place to put a cell phone tower.
Yeah.
But what about the neighbors?
Yeah.
Would you want one in your backyard, just over the property line? How much of a setback do we need?
Yeah. No, nobody wants it in there, but we have, in their yard, but we have to allow it somewhere. That's the rub, is we have to allow them somewhere, so we can't
How
create an
close is too
ordinance
close?
that essentially disallows them.
It's like adopting.
I don't know, but like
I'm
Yeah.
fine as long
Yeah.
as they make phone calls.
The best
I'd
service in
rather have
town.
that than
There's no
neighbors.
holes left, just cured it.
Facts.
Yeah,
So I don't-
that's the other thing is how many more towers are we gonna see and when is it gonna all be satellite and, you know what I mean? So I don't know how huge this is, but it became huge a couple months ago, right?
You know, I
So-
thought about that when I was
Yeah.
thinking that, okay, if that last tower solved all of our dead zones, then, you know, towers will be decommissioned anyway. But that's not the case, because prior to cell phone towers, there's a lot of infrastructure for the United States runs off radio waves. And those towers have microwaves on them for those radio waves, and they're all owned by particular companies that bought those up. And so even when we go satellite, you know, that it's inevitable probably, those towers will still be used for whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be a next thing, because everybody thought those towers would go away with microwaves gone. There's a company in Harrison that came and spoke when I was in Rotary, and it was really enlightening about the use of our air that we breathe, and how, you know, large corporations are making huge amounts of money off of that airspace that they've bought. So, I think that towers are,
You're
not,
saying.
yeah.
Well, when the company, when they came in and presented the coverage map of what that was gonna be covered by this new tower,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't seem like there were many holes. Plus, there's space on that existing tower for other carriers to come in and provide services. So, I mean, to your point, is this are we looking 15, 20 years down the road before we have to worry about this again?
Well, I think we do, at the very minimum, we need to clean up our definitions, because our definition was definitely for the last thing, whatever
Right.
that was, you know, because it was really talking about towers on top of people's houses, is what it was describing. For ham radios or whatever the heck it was they were doing, but that it was not current. And then that made it difficult to establish the use, and do they need a variance, or are it was definitely not listed as an essential service, so it just made it a little complicated, and the definition needs to be at least modernized at the very minimum.
Yeah, so like commercial tower,
Wire,
square
yeah,
footage,
yeah,
screening,
yeah,
height, boom.
standards.
I don't think that we can hang our hat on that tower can have additional carriers, that it can have additional carriers. I'm very curious to see the reality of that, because I think that if you go knock on doors, these people that have towers on their property and were promised additional carriers, that there's zero. I'm in sales, and I found additional carriers, and they wouldn't put them on the tower. So, if that's a Verizon-specific tower, which their name was it was branded when it came in, then are they gonna get into a dispute with whoever else, whatever other carrier there is? And does that other carrier wanna come in and do the same thing they just did for their dead zones in town? So I think that the reality of potential future towers is still present, just based on my personal experience with this.
When I drove south to Portland last Sunday, I noticed all I see is cell phone towers now too.
I know, right?
And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of them. There's with the guy wires, and then there's the monopoles, and there's some monopoles that are pretty short too, you know, but then there's no interference around them either for height. So, I mean, that's all I see. So it makes me wonder if that's because each carrier wants their own tower. There's a ton of them on the way down. So it sounds like it's something we want to look at. Obviously, we need more details. So,
Definitely don't want 20 towers in town with
Right.
20 different carriers.
Yeah, we can do the same type of thing that we did with, solar arrays and, the commercial solar fields. You have a cap, you can only have so many in town.
Well, I don't know if you can do that, because we can't deny them,
An
right?
essential service.
If we're
We don't have
if we're
to class
defining them as an essential service, that's different. So,
But
Kind of is.
they're
the government
essential.
requires them.
And the other thing is that, like, the overlay, I think it's a great idea, but we have to have some basis for why, we can't say, oh, this is where we want them, but it's not someplace that they would actually put them.
Right.
Yeah, so,
The other comment is, when you take a look at the ones on Hackers Hill, there's a couple.
Yeah.
I know there's two, maybe three. But moving forward, as cell phone towers have evolved, they put in non-competes within X amount of feet, and they base that on the height needed for the projection. So if we were to take a look at that contract, I don't know, I would have to imagine if it's like many others that people have shared with me, there's a non-compete on that particular location, so you're not gonna cluster them, which might be preferable than having them
spread out over.
spread out.
Well, yeah, is that something that we could say? Could we say that you have to co-locate? I mean, that's a Verizon tower that we just approved. Now, if Cellular One wants to build a tower, I'm like, right, we're not gonna, can we say you're not going to put one within X amount of whatever?
Well, they'll do
Not-
that.
Right, but I mean,
Oh.
can we say that? And if we could, I would want to do that, like, this is, I mean, you must co-locate if you think you need
Oh, I see your
coverage.
point.
If they think they need coverage in that same area, you have to go on that pole. We're not gonna let you put up another pole.
Well, if we had the land that the town owned, basically, where we weren't planning on building anything, it'd be kind of, we could utilize that as income too. We'll do that all the time.
So a little more research, I think, on this one, but it's definitely something that we need to.
Valid.
Okay,
But then that 55-foot height is a separate thing
Yeah.
altogether. I had actually brought that up
Yeah.
to you, and I had brought it up to this group probably a year ago. And it just came out of some discussions that I had with some folks in Bridgeton on that planning board, is like, they don't allow 55-foot tall buildings everywhere in town, and they have like zones where you can have different heights. And I just,
Shoreland,
well, no, right, not in the shoreland,
But
right,
everything
that's
else.
separate, that has its own, exists in its own world.
just wondered what the.
Why do we want
Yeah.
that's 4 feet, 4 stories, right? Do we want 4-story buildings anywhere and
Rural
everywhere?
zone.
So that's just a question I had, I didn't
The inn
understand it.
On Lake Ashford might be, it has a 4th level to it. It's gotta be darn close to the height of the casino.
And again, I don't think it really matters about what already exists.
No, it's just to get
It's
a
just
visual.
like, right, but like, imagine a whole cluster of those or something, right? I mean,
And a lot of those were holdbacks from many years ago when you had a church steeple or a town office, for example, in Gray. That's where that came from. But now it's all 35 in Gray everywhere. I mean, there's nothing over 35 feet. Obviously, the existing buildings are,
Yeah, ours was originally.
yeah. So, but that's where it comes from, is town offices with clock towers and steeple bells, bell towers. So 55's high in all zoning districts. So it's just, that's, yeah, something to
It
think
would be
about.
nice to maybe layer that with some form of variances based on employment. Like if somebody wanted to come in with 400 new jobs and they needed a building of that height to accommodate that in a zone that's acceptable to that height, could they be given, a variance to that? I don't know how to phrase this, but I'm just saying it would be nice to.
well, that sounds like a commercial enterprise, right? Any
Yeah.
employer that's gonna have 400
Well, I'll tell you
employees.
the reason why Gray limited to 35 is it kept the three-story box housing specials that you see in Westbrook from coming to Gray. It wasn't that they didn't want housing, they just didn't want the 3-story boxes. So if you want to have 3 stories, you're going to put maybe a peak, or you're going to have to design it in such a way that it works, so that it's not the square.
Well, we do have the pitch requirement.
You do.
And then we also have, you can't have a straight line of more than 50 feet either. You
Yeah.
have to create,
In Village,
that anywhere, I think.
anywhere, okay.
Right?
But it's just something to think, it only came up because of the cell phone tower, and then I saw it was 55, 55, 55, and
I
then
know,
you
it's-
brought it, I didn't say anything, and then you
Yeah.
brought it up. May not be super high-hanging fruit, but
But
something
it
to
wouldn't
think
be a
about.
big deal to change. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that if you were gonna have 55 feet, it should be in the commercial district. I'm not sure why you need 55 feet in the rural zone, because I
Yeah,
think,
in the rural zone, it seems kind of tall.
yeah. I mean, even a barn isn't that tall, right?
My barn's not 55 feet.
No.
We've got a
I wanna make
we've
sure
got a
you wanna be able to
32-foot
build that.
ladder and,
You gotta think
don't want-
the
Yeah.
casino building's 55 feet.
Pardon me?
Casino building's 55
Right,
feet.
okay, but again, could you imagine a
I
whole
couldn't see a
wall
barn
of
being
those,
that.
that it would be,
Someone building a barn that.
In a rural
So-
zone, yeah.
But
I
you're-
think that was based
Yeah.
off of ladder truck
yeah.
capability.
so
It wouldn't be the end of the world to have another commercial building though that's 55 feet, so you need to think about that with subject to standards.
That's what I would
So it may
say,
just
in
be the rural zone
35.
where it's predominantly residential,
yeah.
you know, so.
I can think of a few rural lots that are, that could accommodate a building of that size,
Scale's important.
that you couldn't even see it from the road.
Yeah.
But they're currently residential,
Yeah,
and they're 302 access.
yeah.
So,
Well, that's a big part of the bigger comp plan, land use conversation, so that, I mean, it's kind of related. So maybe it is something that could wait. I mean, I don't think people are running down here to build 55,
I can
homes.
say they are not.
So,
And we do have the roof pitch that kind of protects the barn
yes,
situation.
so maybe that one waits
Okay.
until we get further
Kinda
along
like
with the
a
comp plan
commercial
and zoning.
bill.
So one more, and we're done. We would love to add to the state statute related to issuance of permits, where the code officer has the right to deny a permit if there's existing violations. And we would like to have that echoed, particularly in shoreland, but really in land use as well. So that if we've got a property that has one or more violations on it, that we can say, yeah, thank you for your application, but you need to take care of your existing violations before.
NOV is.
No, notice of violation. So, because what happens is if we've got a property that has violations on it, and then they come in and they want to do something else, and then we receive this permit, the time clock starts ticking, we have 30 days to either issue or deny. And we would rather say, you know, we can't take this permit until you take care of the other NOVs that we've already issued you, whether it's a tree violation, whatever it is. And the state does have a statute particularly related to shoreland zoning, and that's what's in your thing. I think that's the most important, is shoreland. So that we're not going down this road of where we've got 3 violations and we've got an active building permit, now we have to deny it, or whatever. We would like to not even receive it until they take care of their existing violations. And at the very least, add it to the shoreland zoning language.
Do you see a reason why you wouldn't want to have that for non-shoreland zoning? I mean, there could be
No, put
potential
that.
violations on any property.
I put it, yeah,
I mean, whether or not you get a lot of
That's,
applications from non-shoreland, I think is irrelevant. I mean, if we're going to take the time to write the thing, then it should probably just to be
I would just
everywhere,
see that
yeah.
being an issue in
and
shoreland.
it also says may take the following actions too. It's not, you know, if they have one tree violation, it's winter, and they can't plant a tree right now, then that wouldn't stop the code officer from issuing a permit or receiving another application. But it's just when we got a property where there's violations that have been ticking for a while, we'll certainly give the code officer a little bit more authority to get it done.
Yeah, I don't see why we would discriminate rural versus commercial.
Or any zone.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
anything,
so
yeah.
land
Any
use,
permit.
yeah.
Other towns have language to that
I
extent.
would say any permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There could be other violations. It could be
Commercial, residential, it's shoreland,
violation
So
of the
land
property.
use and
Yeah.
just in
shoreland.
general.
Yep.
This is just a question, does your office deny permits, or do you check to see if people are current on all their taxes?
We can't do that,
You can't?
no.
So if someone hasn't paid their property taxes, you can't deny them.
No.
The only thing we screen for that is business licenses.
Yeah. So we can't do that, but we're in the violation business over here, so if someone's, and if, like I said, if someone has a tree violation and it's winter and they say, yeah, I'm gonna do it in the spring, and we're not looking to be awful, but when you've got multiple violations, valid written notices of violation, not hearsay or something like that, we've seen it, it's been written
And
up,
it's actually-
and it hasn't been resolved.
So it just
An
must be
official
remedied
NOV.
as soon as practical.
Practicable, right. So we just want to echo the state language is what we're looking to do.
So
And-
that,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's blown up.
That section right there,
It's
deny
A.
the issuance of a permit or or suspend.
Yeah, and we want the language where it says the municipality may, so that it gives you a little bit of room in case it's something that they
And
just.
where would it go in the administrative part, where you describe what about permitting?
Yes,
In your
yeah,
administrative part?
under code
Okay.
enforcement, the administrative part, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
All right, I think that's all I have. So we've got one, remove food sovereignty and enact a new farm stand ordinance. Two, the towers, and three, the NOVs
And all the road stuff?
and the road stuff, and that's gonna be the hardest one out of all of them. Well, the cell phone tower is gonna be a little complicated
I
too,
think
depending
so.
on how complicated we wanna get.
So the
And,
NOVs
road
is the
could be-
easiest.
The road could be simple too, though. It doesn't have, I don't want it to be, private roads are always a hassle in every single town because you got old roads that weren't built to any standard. So I don't want it to be super complicated. I want it more of to be moving forward.
Well, I think
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah,
We're not talking
yes.
about people having to go,
Yeah.
so people understand, you don't
Yeah.
have to go and redo your private
Redo your
road.
road.
That's just going forward because it increased, and then the increased subdivision
Subdivision,
and all of that.
yeah, but an old private road eventually though, if you've divided it and now you've divided it into there's 10 house lots over time.
Yeah.
Where does that go? I want it to be simple though, and I don't want it to be a huge, crazy road standard. Just want it to be so an ambulance can get down the road, or a fire truck, and there's a turnaround, that type of thing. So I think we have 4 to work on, to go to the select board first to make sure they're on board.
Yeah, and there was interest in really shoring up the language for subdivisions, as far as what infrastructure must be in place prior to a certain degree of build-out, a certain percentage of build-out of the subdivision. I've got 3 different properties in town where I'm dealing with issues where infrastructure wasn't installed, and the complete subdivision was built out. So just being very clear on the language of at what point in the project must roads be installed, must fire protection be installed.
Can a subdivision be phased? That type of stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be set up so they're ready for the next step
Yep.
beforehand, kind of when, I think a lot of towns are doing now with sidewalks.
Yeah.
The road has to be set up for a sidewalk, even though they're not putting them in yet, it
One
has to be ready
thing
for it.
that my office has noticed is that if we do permits on a subdivision that needed infrastructure, we have continuously said you can get your building permit application, however, you can't get your certificate of occupancy. However, what happens is they sell off the lots before the person who actually did this whole process installs that infrastructure. So the people get very angry because they were able to get,
Buy a lot. And,
buy a lot and then build it and then,
There's no road.
yes. So it'd be better if we can't do it past a certain point, depending on, if they actually have the road down, if they actually have, I think they can sell the lots, but they shouldn't be able to even get building permits until that infrastructure is in.
It puts you in a bad position because then someone wants their CO and they're waiting to
Exactly.
close
For
on
their
their
bank.
house and they don't have a cistern.
Yeah,
So I think, first of all, we need to make sure we have sufficient escrow to finish roads and infrastructure in case someone goes out of business because the economy decides to take a turn or whatever, and they die or move to Florida and they didn't finish their subdivision. So we need to make sure we have enough escrow. The other thing is, a lot of towns will limit, okay, you can have the first 5 lots, and then that way they don't have to escrow as much, but you can't sell lots 6 through whatever until you finish the infrastructure up to this. So there's ways to do it, but I don't think it's really in the subdivision ordinance performance guarantee section yet.
Would that be documented like a certificate of occupancy? This is a really
Yeah.
tricky one.
Yeah.
As many people know, I'm a realtor by trade.
Yeah.
And man, I don't like
Yeah.
trying to sell something in a brand-new subdivision because it's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, if there was a certificate of completeness for lots 1 through 5,
Yeah.
and that was in the file, so that when you come in to do your due diligence, or if it's a person off the street and they know they should check that,
Yeah.
there's some kind of documentation in there that says, okay, the town said that this road is fit to be built on.
Yeah. I think it's a little tricky in Naples right now, just because, we don't necessarily call an engineer to do third-party inspections on the road, and Gray's a bigger town, but if it's phased into 3 phases, once that infrastructure is in, whether it's a stormwater pond or a cistern or a road, Grow Pond will go out and take a look and say, yep, it's built to spec, and then they're good to go for lots 0 through whatever, phase 1. But it's certainly something that we can definitely tighten up, and step 1 is to, when a subdivision is approved, in each file, there should be a copy of the subdivision that's been approved, and then there should be, if there's any conditions attached to that, saying that conditions are lot 0 through 5, can be sold because the road is, meets the standard. I know what you're saying. When you go in, how would you know? If you're a lot buyer, how would you know that there's this, issue? But then how does the developer get enough money to do these things until they can sell lots? So you have to figure out a way to make it work for both the developer and the lot purchaser.
I've also seen clusters where maybe the project has gone through 2 handlers.
Yeah.
And the file is kind of one file.
Yeah.
And you have designs with lots numbered one way and designs with lots numbered another way.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell what is the current
Yeah.
map,
Yeah.
sketch for the current, so having all of those numbered or attached permanently or something to avoid confusion, because it certainly looked like there was a solid plan,
Yeah.
assuming that's what went in and that isn't what went in.
Right.
So it's hard to know when you're trying to do your due diligence, because the state doesn't require anyone to, you get your initial HHE 200 and you go out and you road and your drainage, and you go out, and then they get out there with their transits and they say, hey, it makes a whole lot more sense, let's go this way.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be over there, and it's over there.
Yeah.
So there's no follow-up documentation as to what went in the ground,
That's
so.
why in a major subdivision, particularly with smaller lots, I really like to see a line. The well's gotta be over here and the septic's gotta be over there, because it's just impossible, because as you said, there's no documentation of where we have it in our file of where the septic actually went, but someone goes out there and they put a septic in some other location, and then now you've got a conflict. And now the next lot down is impacted by where that decision. So I love well inclusion and exclusion zones that make it really simple. Your wells are going on the front and your septic's on the back based on the topography, but it doesn't happen in every subdivision. So yeah, there's a lot of work to definitely be done in subdivision, and we need to take a look at that, but particularly performance guarantees. I know when I started in Gray, there was a lot of 06 defunct subdivisions that the town ended up paying for to pave them because they were bankrupt. And there's been a couple scenarios here as well where just the road doesn't get done. Where's the cistern? So we need to clean that up.
So Kevin's watching the meeting, and he's been texting me, and he just said that there is some road construction phasing wordage in the subdivision ordinance, but
Yeah.
not other infrastructure stuff, question
Yeah.
mark, i.e. fire retention, et cetera. So when we do subdivisions, I mean, because all the utilities have to be underground.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a certain level of expectation that some things are I mean, you're not going to put your utilities underground and not do your roads and all of that, right? I mean, and, you know, there is some leeway on the planning board. I'd like to know that a subdivision that I'm approving is complete and livable.
Yeah.
I have a lot of concern when we get subdivisions and it's not a project that is where there's a builder and there's a build package that you're buying, that you're just buying lots, and there's just a lot of opportunity for things to go sideways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think anything that we can do to make sure that those subdivisions, even where individual lots are bought, that the infrastructure is in place.
The biggest thing is escrow and.
There should be
or
no
performance
occupancy
guarantee. Because,
certificates of occupancy if there's no fire suppression system in place or anything. We see the mess that has happened with that gentleman that keeps coming right now, and whatever, to the select board. I mean, it's just not tenable.
but you also don't want to put final pavement on until while you're doing construction too, so you need to have an escrow for final pavement, because you don't want to be
Right, not
tearing
final,
up.
but something. I mean, I
yeah.
see it all the time when I look at
Yeah.
subdivisions, you know, if I look at real estate, like in Kennebunk area, like you go in and everything's beautiful. I mean, the curves are done, all the underground utilities are in, you know exactly where the lots are gonna be.
Yeah.
And because people are living there as it gets developed, and nobody wants to live in a
Yeah.
dust bowl, right?
Well,
So,
the state does it with like highway work, bridge work, things like that. If you bid on that job, you have to have a certain bond. So if you go bankrupt
Yeah.
or you mess up,
Yep.
the state or like the town can literally grab that bond and they can have somebody else
Yeah.
finish the
Right.
work.
You feel horrible about it because what happens is you get someone that's new and they, it's really hard for them to get a bond from the bank when they're a new subdivider. But you know what? They always find the money. There's one company that's here now, the first subdivision they did, and then they're on the agenda for one right now. They really struggled in Gray to come up with the capital to make it happen, but they did it. And they got their performance guarantee, and then they were able to build their subdivision.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it were easy, everyone would be.
As long as you make it the same for
That's what I tell my
everybody.
husband. He always says,
Everybody has to have
"You
some
were a
skin in the
realtor,
game."
you're a planner. Why don't we buy a piece of land and be a subdivider?" And I'm like, "No, we're not doing it. No." He says, "Oh, come on, you could do it." Nope.
Well, there's still
so-
some items under number 5,
Yeah.
under old business.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry.
So, the short-term rental ordinance,
Yeah.
I think the entire committee was surprised at the last meeting in February that suddenly that was tabled, so we had done a lot of work on that. I still have my draft that we were working on.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask the select board again, I mean, since that was approved by them for us to work on, I think in a public meeting, they should be telling us why suddenly that was postponed, or,
You can answer that question.
Yeah, I don't believe, well, I've mentioned it at a public meeting, but in separate conversations with various select board members, there's no desire to move forward with it at this point.
so that was not discussed in a public meeting, but, so that's a
Well, I mean, it was
select board.
discussed here at the last meeting when I mentioned the conversation with the select board.
Right,
They
here,
don't-
but I mean, not at a select board meeting. We didn't hear why they moved that way when people in the town clearly have an interest in it. Frankly, I don't understand it when all, abutting towns have moved in that direction. And all we were talking about was a registration. We weren't talking about a limiting or a prohibition or anything like that. So, I mean, I'd like it on the
I'll
list.
put it on the agenda.
And
for
I'd
the
like
next
to
select
hear
board.
them explain why suddenly they're pulling back from
Well,
something
change-
that
change
they had
of heart.
told us that they were supporting.
Yeah, so originally when it came up about a year ago, when we spoke with the team from GPCog, when they developed their beta software to track short-term rentals within your zip code, we wanted to see what the number was. And we averaged about 210
Yep.
of rentals that were available either on VRBO or Airbnb. And I said, if we're gonna go down this road based on the data, I said that we need to have an ordinance in place. And then follow-up discussion again back in, several months back was that they didn't want to proceed forward with it.
They didn't want to proceed, the select board didn't want to proceed forward based on getting the data from GPCog?
No,
Oh,
so with the general response was the administrative burden associated with this policy for the 210 homes that we see, or 210 short-term rentals that are on average, being advertised in the town, it didn't justify it.
I mean, I can see that, but just the sheer fact of knowing that they're there. So it's not just willy-nilly, anybody can do it, just like any business. It is a business. So even if they didn't want to do the inspections in this, but at least register that you're doing it.
They have to do that through the state anyway, though, for tax reasons.
So even if it is only 210, which I question, I think it's more than that, but,
It is,
no,
but I
think
mean,
it
of the
was
two.
210, just assume it also affects a factor of all the people that live next to those 210.
Probably a
So
factor
we're-
of 4.
At least, right? So we're talking about a large population of the community that is affected by short-term rentals.
Well,
We have
that's
an application before the planning board right now, which is essentially a development of short-term rentals.
which is great to bring up during our planning board process would be, those type of, restrictions regarding, if they're doing some type of association or subdivision, if they would like to say, we will not allow them in this association, we will not allow them. A lot of the people that are very upset about these are people that have older subdivision lots.
Yeah.
And they're upset because their neighbors are renting out their properties. So that's nothing that we can really go in and enforce. However, you guys have the authority to do it as, a private covenant, and that has nothing to really do with us.
So
Association
we're not
with their own
talking,
rules.
just to be clear, we're not talking about prohibiting short-term rentals in Naples. Casco does not prohibit them. We were modeling our potential ordinance on Casco's, which is basically a registration that provides for some safety features, for parking, for not exceeding the septic capacity. We weren't even talking about noise. We were talking because I think that we felt that if you're limiting your rental capacity to what your septic can handle, that it ends up having the ancillary positive effect that you're not going to have, 10, 15 people renting a house, right? Because now you
And
can't.
just so I can be clear, if anybody has a complaint about their neighbor and they see that they're renting out something, have them contact the code office and we can look into it as a complaint to say, oh, here's what they listed online. I don't think that's
So
true.
what authority does your office have if we don't have such an ordinance? I don't understand how that.
It would be based off of the septic design.
So they're renting
It would
out
be off of
three rooms to
chapter
sleep
1000.
in, 3
But-
bedrooms,
so
and
again,
it's a 2-bedroom system.
It kind of disturbs me that everything in Naples has to be complaint-driven.
Works that way in most towns.
I know, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have enough people to do, yeah.
But to your point, I'm one of those people that lives in an association, but we have been postponing and debating this for a couple of years because of the anticipation that we heard that the town was looking at certain ordinances. So we say, how far is the town gonna go, and what do we need to implement in our covenants and our bylaws?
It would be much easier for you guys just to have a meeting, vote on it privately.
No.
Well, see, that's
But
another huge
they're saying,
thing.
why should, it's not our job to impose the septic, the occupancy and the septic system limits.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for some guidance from you and say, all right, in our bylaws, when you have a short-term rental, you must adhere to these ordinances that are in the town. But we don't have that. We don't have that guidance from you.
But you wouldn't need, you could literally set a rule that you can only have 4, like you could do it, but only have 4 people.
So there's a couple ways you can go about this. So the ordinance review committee is an advisory body to the select board. Select board takes your recommendations, decides whether or not they want to put it on a warrant. The other avenue is there can be a community petition for an article to go on the warrant. Say, we want a a short-term rental ordinance. That can then override the select board's decision whether or not they want to entertain it and put it on a warrant. So there's, as Martinez, you said, if you said there are several residents in town that have this concern, then those residents can,
Petition it.
can present a community petition to have it put on a warrant as an article.
So Kevin just responded, and he said I could read this out loud. He says, "There's absolutely no harm in re-presenting and selling the short-term rental to the select board."
Yeah, so I'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
And I'll create a memo.
And I think that would have the added benefit that we could, so that people, I feel really strongly about things being discussed in public at select board meetings, and that way the public can attend and make comment. That was part of my reason, I don't know about the rest of you, that I was so shocked that we found out suddenly that that was just, postponed
Yep.
without a conversation.
Because a short-term rental is coming to a property near you, and people may not realize it right now, but, I mean, if we want to protect those people who is gonna, their property values, their enjoyment is gonna be curtailed because of a short-term rental. But I understand.
Well,
You're saying, as my Woodland Shores Association, we should just,
Be proactive.
okay.
I would suggest, Martinez, the chair, you come and present an overview brief on why you think this is important. Don't let the select board just give an explanation to say, this is why you think it's important as an ordinance review committee, this is why we think the residents think it's important, and then the select board can then give you their guidance from there.
Right, because ultimately, it would go on the warrant, and ultimately, the people in Naples do get to decide. And I've never been a fan of, I know it's a legitimate way to approach things, but I'm not really a big fan of individual citizen-written ordinances. We saw the way that all went with the wedding barn, and that was a mess, having two competing things going on. So I think in a public forum with people that are on committees, writing an ordinance where people can come and then everybody votes on it is the best way to move forward with anything like this, in my opinion.
So what's your concern with it? You want everybody to register?
Yes, it's
Pay a fee?
Yep, and so the fee hadn't yet to be determined, and it was a small fee.
As a percentage of what the revenue is from a short-term rental, yeah.
So, I don't even think it was that. We were just talking just enough something to cover the expense
No,
of
I'm saying that
managing,
as a
like
percentage,
$100 or
it's a
something.
very
not even-
small amount.
Yeah,
What does that do? I don't understand.
so it gives us, what gives the town, I don't want to use the word control, but an awareness of where all of these short-term rentals are, and it really provided safety. It addressed some of these safety and environmental concerns, again, as we were talking about the roads, right? So a lot of these short-term rentals are happening on camp roads that aren't very wide, so that the short-term rental would have to provide off-street parking. You couldn't have more cars there than you could park in your driveway or on your property, and that you couldn't rent it for more than what your septic was designed for.
That's a big one.
That is huge, and the cars and the septic alone, because we're not saying you can't have one, but just limiting the cars and the septic to what the house was designed to accommodate has the positive effect of not having it be a party house, right?
Yeah, when there's 12 people next door to me, 12 to 16 people next door to me, I
No,
know that.
I get that. I think it brings a lot of tourism to the town, we used to have a cabin business on my property. We don't anymore. But, there's a lot of the cabin businesses that have, dissolved.
And it's
So I
not
think
eliminating that
Right, I know,
at all.
I know.
We
But
have
it
one
just-
before the planning board right now, which is
Right.
essentially that. I
No.
called it a motor court last night because I didn't know what else the heck to call it.
Called it a what?
A motor court,
Oh,
because it's
yeah. I
basically,
thank you.
some little cabins that are gonna all be for short-term rental.
Yep.
I just think
And-
it might create a policing problem, like it's another job or something, and, you know what I mean? I don't know. I've just sort of mixed on it, I guess, because I think,
I wonder if this circles back around to enforcement of how you enforce that. I think that the folks who are over renting their cabins are gonna find out sooner rather than later, because they're gonna blow their leach fields. The highest risk of blowing your leach field is large volume use in a short
know.
amount of time. So,
And do you think that they jump on that immediately? I mean,
Well, they have
it
to.
fails over a period of time, and by the time you realize it, it's already doing environmental damage. They're not,
well, they blow out, that's, they're gonna, it's gonna be absorbed into the soil, and when the damage comes is when they blow out, and everybody's gonna know, because you're gonna smell it.
and yeah, and it affects everyone now, because not everybody's well is 100 feet away from a septic and some, on a camp road, right? I mean, there's a couple right on my street where they're not, and
Right.
100 feet is the minimum. It should be actually more, but, that
But
is.
when I think what we're getting into is an issue where Cumberland County's not gonna come in and, regulate
Yep.
this. And, so maybe the closest opportunity to, create, a cohesive habitat is through the noise piece of it. And through the noise piece of it, I don't know if that particular item is something that we can have something to stand on. I know that I'm pretty darn careful with my decibels down there, because I don't want anyone taking my venue away. I can't, my brain's not working fast enough, I'm sorry. I need a cup of coffee. Whatever that license is that we have, what is it,
Entertainment.
please? Entertainment license, thank you. And so that might be one way that or parking of cars. I think those two are safety issues. I guess Kate is saying that if people are over renting, that maybe the town has something to stand on with that.
I think, this is just a personal opinion, and I don't have any skin in the game, but I think that the registering or licensing is, at very simple standards, is probably the way to go, because it gets the code officer in there once, to say, okay, this is the occupancy, here's your off-street parking. And then every year, they just re-register, they get their business license, just like anybody else would. And if they abuse it, like they're getting 15 complaints or something like, you're getting complaints on this one, then you don't have to reissue it, right? That's my thought, but, but the thing that, the enforcement part's gonna be really hard no matter what, because like you said, Cumberland County's not gonna do it. We're not here on the weekends, right? So that's when you're gonna have
That's when
the
the people
party
coming
at
from away, yeah.
the party at the camp, right? But I think it just sets a minimum standard of, and then something in that business license says, if there's a change of ownership, you need to notify the town, or whatever. But at this point, the select board's not moving forward on it, but I think, it doesn't hurt to think, we basically finished it, it's kind of in the queue, and see where we go from there.
Could we get a copy? I don't have a copy of that.
Yeah, Martina, if you could send me
Yeah.
the one with all your edits, that would be fantastic, because I could not find that. We basically took Casco and made edits and made it actually, I think, simpler than
Yeah.
Casco's, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's the one that we worked
Yeah.
on. Okay, the one you had on here was marine safety.
And the mobile vendor trucks,
the
I don't
mobile
have
vendor.
anything new, though,
Yeah.
that's the problem. I know they want us to do it, but I don't know what they want us to do.
Yeah, basically want to look at zoning, where can people have mobile vending trucks between Labor Day or Memorial Day and Labor Day? Do we change that outside of those dates? Because we do want to recognize that there are brick and mortar establishments that, that's their livelihood. So we can probably limit them to both number and location between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And then year round, outside of those months, define a different area, and also same capacity. We'd have to put in, there's already rules in there regarding about, hauling in and hauling out your waste and things like that. But the second part of that is the fee portion of it. The select board manages the fee schedule, so they really want to look at creating a fee schedule that will attract those types of businesses that'll want to come and bring their food truck here for a weekend, a couple times a month. The ball fields, I think, are a great example, great location to have them out, even during season. But really the select board is looking to make the ordinance change that allows it to be more accessible to food truck type businesses. So right now, there's a $2,000 fee, but the ordinance reads that the select board will decide the limit. How many can be in town, where they'll go.
Okay.
That would mean that every single food truck application would have to come to the select board. And depending on when they submit their application, it might be a month before they get seen. So that impacts their ability to do business, and if it's hard to do business, then they won't come.
Okay, so you want to eliminate the having to come to the select board. And then you want to limit the number in the causeway during peak season because you're competing against brick or mortar.
Well, not just the causeway, the village district. So
The
if we would
entire
allow
village.
food trucks, say, we'll allow, let's say we allowed one over at Kent's Landing between Labor Day and Memorial Day. Or we allowed 3 or 4 of them up at the ball fields year-round. Or if there was a special event, how many would we allow and where would we allow them to be?
So how many and
Does
where?
it
Yep.
read
So
as
who's
town
deciding?
property
Keep 'em off the causeway.
only?
Say again?
Market.
Who's deciding it if it's not going to the select board?
Well, that's what I mean, is we put the number in the ordinance that says there's a maximum of 4 food trucks allowed during these
So do they
months.
self-police? It's like
So
whoever
we
gets
first
there
come, first
first?
served, kind of
I don't know, it's 'cause
No,
you're
they
saying
still
they
have to
don't.
submit an application.
Oh.
For a food truck permit.
Okay.
But if the number's already set, if we say, hey, there's already 4 operating in town this weekend, you can't come, because the ordinance says the maximum number's been set to 4, then it's easy. But if we leave it subjective that the select board can decide the number, that means every single one has to come before the select board. And the other thing we want to make sure of is that you don't have a single food truck
Buy all
operator buy up all 4 permits and then never use them
Person.
because they don't want competition.
So it'd be like a waiting list?
There'd be a wait list, and and then you'd have to include, if you bought it for the month of July, but we haven't seen your food truck for the last 2 weekends, then you're subject,
rescind it.
then your permit's subject to revocation, and we'll go to the next person on the wait list.
But so who's reviewing the application? What's the administrative end of this? Is this going to code or, I don't understand.
So we'd have to go to code, and then the license would have to come through the town manager's office, much like a business license.
So
And
we
we,
would have to keep track of how many we've issued.
But are we talking about, because we do have certain standards for people on private property,
right, we're talking, this is more the public.
This is the public
Public
end.
domain.
that's
Yep.
why it was going to the select board in the first place.
That's what I'm saying, it's definitely gonna be specific places, because you
We
can't put
don't-
them on the causeway.
No, because you take up parking.
And we already have parking issues.
Yep.
So, but we're not gonna, you guys are gonna set the fees. We don't have to worry about the fees. We just need to look at where, when,
And how many.
and how many. Okay.
Well, how many all goes by what size trailer you have,
It's
how
not
big.
really-
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about-
that's the
tough.
tricky part, is defining the size of a.
Well, we talked about that before too,
Yeah.
is what is the size of a standard food truck?
Yeah.
Like, that would have, like, where the location is, would have to be measured of how many square feet we can fit, and that would decide
Well,
whether
that's what,
That's the
3,
where.
4 of them.
Yeah.
and that's why we decide, that's why we have to specify where they can go, because then we know the dimensions, we know that, hey, like say here on the Village Green, we allow 2. All right, well, those would be on the outbound lane, that's all we'll allow there, and then say the
But then is it
ball
a
field's 3.
I mean, I know, like, I guess we're not doing the fees, but would it be a set fee? Because let's say you have somebody that has a smaller one, are they paying the same fee as somebody who has, a 30-footer?
Yeah, it would,
It's taking up that space.
it would be a set fee for the, right now it's $2,000 for a season, if you're on public property.
No takers, right?
And
Yeah.
who knows if someone wants to rent for the season, maybe they just want to rent for a month.
Yeah.
So,
But if somebody has a giant one and somebody has a smaller one, you're taking away not only from the town, but like
That's
somebody
by
else that could
space.
be
That is
there.
by space.
So-
Yeah.
$2,000 is cheap for
But
a
like
whole-
the fair, like you go to the
Cheaper,
Freiburg Fair, you don't pay by your
Cheap.
spot, you pay by your footage.
right, so we, like, if we were to establish, just again,
Yeah.
example numbers, 2 spots here. If we said, hey, the outbound lane here could absorb 2 spots measuring 60 feet, each one.
So if they overlap.
If
that,
you're a
they pay for that
30-footer,
second
you're
spot.
Buying
paying a
two.
60-foot spot.
You're buying 2. So to establish the size of the spot,
Mm-hmm.
we've got 2 spots that are X by X. If you want to take both with your one, great, you can pay for 2 spots. So where, when, and how many is what you're looking for.
So
After
Kevin
the
is
season.
suggesting that they only happen during special events. I'd be surprised to hear what the business community thinks of this, because my understanding is that this whole event,
They don't
this
want
had its origins to protect, out of the desire for the people on the causeway in the village district to protect their brick and mortar businesses. Is that right, Sue? And so now we're having a conversation that
Well,
completely.
no.
Anybody I've talked to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in heart palpitation over here.
I'm sure you are.
There's a,
Right,
Make short-term rentals
To be
seem like
honest,
nothing.
Right.
and along
Yeah, I
with
can
the
understand.
other
It's taking
folks in
away from
town,
people
I think that
wait
this
around.
would be
Would you
very,
care
well handled
post, year-round.
if it were
Would you care
taken
post-season?
to,
If
the
someone
approach
parked
that we
a
went
food
with the
truck
signs.
No,
on the
no.
Before it gets blown up into a big to-do, that
Guys,
you do.
can you, I can't hear Sue.
yeah, can you
Yeah.
get the sign conversation?
I think that this might be best handled if it were taken to one of those, the best word I can think of is think tank, like we ended up with the sign ordinance and the decibel ordinance.
So like a workshop.
Workshop, thank you, so that you could hear people's input. Clearly, I've done a lot, I personally have done a lot of research on this, and it seems as though the towns that may have gotten, lack of a better word, burned in this situation, or there have been turbulence, it seems they've moved to volume events, and they're handling it under their mass gathering ordinances, so that if you're anticipated to bring in 500 people, that equals X amount of food trucks. If you bring in 1,000, it equals X amount of food trucks. Many of them are doing the application process has to be complete by the first meeting of the select board in May, so it's not rolling all summer. Residents get first priority over non-residents. And I haven't found any town who's allowing them on public property. It's all been private property.
And it might be good to do, think of it as something like, you know, a farmer's market, like a weekly food truck thing out here, you know, just where people can come in on like a Thursday or something. And we would have food trucks lined up and they would pay for each week that they come in, and we could do something like that rather than,
I'd encourage folks to go car count on Thursdays at restaurants. If they want them to stay open and see how many cars are in their parking lots. I think it really goes back to a volume event, where if you're creating an event and it's bringing in X amount of people, then there would be X amount allowed. But a real rub is a nonprofit group running an event that probably isn't bringing in 500, that gets food trucks in, and there's no fee for the food truck. You know, we pay for every fork we have in our restaurant. That the woman that comes and does the assessing of what you have for equipment in your building, you know, I'm not some large corporation. I've scrapped for the stuff that I've got. My hoods I paid $100 for at auction. I don't think I should have to pay the same tax as somebody who just put in brand spanking new hoods. You know, it goes back to that level for us of what we pay tax on to the town, including all the other fees to be here. And then to also have the majority of people I've spoken to, whether they're open or closed, within the past 3 weeks have had 5 requests for some kind of gift. You know, everybody comes to us to expect support of somebody's sick or whatever, and we need gift certificates. Where's the return on the community support from people who are doing snatch and grabs? And they're coming in and snatching and grabbing during the time where we need to make that money to pay those bills that we have, that we're faced with. So I think that it would be a great opportunity to do a workshop if the town is insistent on going down this road. And see if there could be some mutual ground. Because I'm biting my nose off to spite my face with that comment, compared to what I've heard. But as I have said to Martina on multiple occasions, I'm trying to be very open-minded here, is that the world has changed. And we get that the world has changed, and we don't want to deprive the town of particular culture. But I think there needs to be a balance. And I think a workshop might be a way to do that. And, it's not like you can go up in September and apply to the Freiburg Fair. It's a process to get in up there. And I think that the towns that have told their mobile vendors that they've decided what's going to happen in the town, and they are giving proper notice to the brick and mortars by saying, hey, we got to know by May 1st. So that then those brick and mortars can plan accordingly. We do a lot of buying ahead on food products to get discounts. We staff. I don't know anybody that was going to tell you we don't have enough staffing. And you can then take a look and project forward and accommodate for that so that your brick and mortar stays there. And I think that shows a level of respect to those folks. And I don't think they're having any hard time filling those spots. But when you are watching the videos on TV and you have a chair of a board saying, hey, we're so excited, we want to have, and I don't know if a permit's been pulled for this, but what I heard is a Father's Day weekend food truck festival on the Causeway. This year only, because we don't have a policy, so this year only we're going to do a food truck festival on the Causeway. Wow. That's shock.
Well, those are ideas coming out of the events committee. None of it's been approved. Those ideas have to come before the select board for approval. I agree. During season, having food trucks on the Causeway, not a good idea. But if a private landowner that's in proximity to the Causeway wanted to have a food truck on their property that was, on private property but open to the public, that'd be $1,000 fee to have it for that day, as the fee schedule stands right now. So there's nothing. Our current ordinance allows them to have that. The event as a whole would have to be approved. And I think the select board would have to thoughtfully consider, all right, what is the impact to our local businesses? But at the same time, we don't want to discourage business growth. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs, they especially in the food industry, and you know this, they may start out with a very modest beginning, and that creates seed money for them to then grow into a brick and mortar. But if you don't offer that if you don't create that opportunity for that then those organizations never grow. So I think you're right. We do have to have a balance with the food trucks that, one, respects the fact that you do pay taxes in town, that you do employ people in town. Definitely take preference over, Naples residents that have a food truck that want to operate one over folks that aren't Naples residents. I think that's why we're bringing this up. Some thought needs to be given to the ordinance, because right now, as it's written, no food trucks come here because it's cost prohibitive. The barriers are too big. So I think we do need to rework the ordinance so that we give those opportunities, but also respect the brick and mortars that are here.
How does Bridgeton handle it, coexist with the brick and mortars, with their music on Maine, with the food trucks and so forth that they have there? That's my question.
You said exactly right. They coexist. So it comes down, and I think this is kind of what you were alluding to, Sue, is that it comes down to volume. If you know you're going to have a volume capacity or a volume of attendance that exceeds your current capacity for your brick and mortar establishments,
Right.
You don't want
The
people to
overflow
leave
is-
the town and say, well, I couldn't get a bite to eat. I'm gonna go on to the next place.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have enough opportunity for people to grab a bite to eat and stay and enjoy everything that's nice about Naples.
It is, I looked into it. That is privately owned property, so They are paying taxes on that.
Even the parking lots in the back?
The whole 9 yards is privately owned.
Oh, okay.
And so they do these events very consciously, and they're volume-based. So that the numbers of people they're bringing in, which are significant, and they have the opportunity to do that. They have a police department that they're not going to have to pay extra for to come be there for these people, which we don't have that luxury here. In fact, you know, a lot of our stuff is water-based, and now we have less
Now we have
wardens
less of that, too,
available,
yeah.
you know, because the wardens department has been cut. So that's a factor that Bridgeton has that infrastructure that we don't. But for safety, but in addition to that, they're bringing in enough volume, is my understanding from the operators up there that I spoke to, that it creates balance. So it goes back to volume. And previously, Naples has been pretty tight on wanting to have large events. Like Rocktoberfest, I feel like was fairly successful, and it seemed to be more family-oriented than other events that we may have had in the past. But they don't have, they also have the things that happen at the facility out by the Rolfe Pit. It's the
Ham complex.
Yeah.
They have an arts festival too?
And that's volume oriented as well.
Okay.
So that's volume oriented. And as far as standalone food parks, they haven't addressed anything more particular or non-event food truck venues in the town, because they had a park, it looked like it was going to get big, they thought they needed to address it, and then it's really just down to one truck
Right.
there on that property, and I think they pay the taxes on it. So they didn't pursue that further, but they're event-driven as well as, I haven't found any town that isn't event-driven, either, and they're all on private property, they're not on public property.
Makes sense.
And consistently, there's restrictions on footage from sidewalks, is what I'm seeing.
Gray does allow, they do rent space on public property, but it's event-based. And they have a space in the farmer's market, and they also have space on the municipal grounds, but it's for events. And they have a deadline for the application. So the first X amount of people that get it, they get it. The deadline is driven by the date of the event, right? So it's 6 months prior, whatever it is. But, so,
I think you
where,
have to
when,
look here
yeah.
at what is the town benefiting by having food trucks come to the town? Obviously don't need them on a regular basis. So if you have a major event and you want to have food trucks there and you charge them for being there, that's one thing. Maybe you should give the nonprofits in town the opportunity to sell food at special events, to raise money that will stay in the town. What they're doing.
4th of July, we have the
Right.
fire station doing their
Sure.
job.
No, they don't have theirs anymore.
They sold their wagon, but that was, I mean, I went over and bought a burger from them when they were down there, and gave them a donation. But the nonprofits are viewed very differently. And I think that if a nonprofit event is having a nonprofit fundraiser, then they ought to have nonprofit
Yeah,
vendors
so
at it,
that
like the
sounds
Lions
like
Club
a-
or whatever. But
I think a workshop is a good idea. I also think personally that having food trucks in the off-season on the causeway in October or November would be nice. It would give, I never go down there, right? You could walk along the sidewalk and grab a burger or whatever, or God, even a fried dough. Who doesn't have a hankering for fried dough sometime in November and you can't get one? I don't know, so.
Before we start considering food
But-
trucks, especially around this area here, we need, like, like Sue said, everything's event driven. I think we need to start working on those events, and track the people before we start getting the food trucks in. So we don't take away from the people that are already here.
So it sounds like we have a lot of questions for our direction.
I think there's a lot more to this than
Did we
meets
just,
the
did
eye,
we
really.
discuss marine safety or no? I mean, I'm just conscious of time, it's
Oh, yeah.
11 o'clock,
So,
but,
Real quick from marine
Yeah.
safety, there's no rush to update that ordinance. We can, even with the administrative reorganization, we can operate with the ordinance as it exists. The only thing that's gonna have to change is just some of the language and titles.
yeah.
But that's it, that can all wait until November, and I think it'd be good to have a good summer run with the new marine safety supervisor, so we can get his input prior to changing it and updating it for the November ballot.
But you still want it on November, though.
I still like to get done in
So
November.
when do we have to discuss it?
So it would have to be done here by August.
Yeah, so that's
It'd have to be
quick
through
sooner
this
than,
group by August.
so that's gonna be quicker than we think.
Yeah.
So I just need some guidance on what sections need to
Yep.
be.
Yeah, I've already marked it up.
Okay, oh, you got it all
Yeah,
right.
Like
it seems
types.
like
I mean, I
administrative
looked at it,
stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy.
It should be easy, okay.
And just as a quick sidebar, because Craig and I had different opinions, Monday night, did you say that the new marine safety officer is 31 years old and has experience as a veteran, or is a 31-year
31-year
veteran?
31
So he is our generation. Thank you
Okay.
for clarifying.
Yeah, he's a 31-year veteran of the Coast Guard.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to meet again on May 21st,
Yeah,
as
that's-
according to this?
Yes.
Okay, so we all ready, do we need a motion to adjourn? Okay.
Can I just mention one thing?
Yeah.
There's nowhere on here that it is like for comment, so I saved it for, I'm guessing, discussion items.
Okay.
I think that we should consider requesting that the select board have us take a look at the commercial zoning and maybe think about creating phases of commercial zoning. And one could say that we should wait for the comprehensive plan for that. And I don't think that we want to touch any geographic areas other than what is already created on the zoning map. But I feel as a planning board member who sat on the planning board that there's a lot of things that should be done, should be clarified for people so that they're not way down the track and then having things thrown at them. And also creating zones where particular types of businesses might be best suited. And I don't think that that's a major overhaul. I think that it's a tweak. And I think that there's a couple other tweaks that we need to do to the commercial piece to get us through until, probably 2 years from now, we start looking at the changes needed from the comprehensive plan. A lot can happen in 2 years, and that we might want to take a look at.
I'd be super supportive of the commercial one and commercial two, and then commercial one, to allow more uses in some areas, but also mixed use is a big one that we're running up against. Mixed use is allowed in the village, but not in the commercial district.
Define the mixed use.
Mixed use is where you have a residential and a commercial component in the same building.
Yeah.
We got tons of non-conformance, which some of it was created by the town by changing zoning. And so this is a great, the world has changed conversation. Housing is the thing, offices aren't so much, people are working from home. And so being able to have maybe a commercial on the first floor and an apartment on the second floor, where you're always gonna get the apartment rented, you might lose your commercial renter.
Is that really only allowed in the village
It
district
is,
right now?
it's not allowed in commercial. You can have you can have more than one commercial business in a,
Right.
But not next.
but not mixed.
Oh, okay.
And I think mixed use needs to be allowed in commercial. I think it already exists, I can think of 4 properties right now that it already exists in. And I'll tell you where it's an issue is when you got non-conformance, there's one property where there's a residential component and there is a commercial component in the commercial district. The lot is non-conforming. and one of the uses was abandoned. So now you have a legitimate house there and a legitimate office, but technically they can't do it anymore because the use has been abandoned. So now a new person comes in, it's less than 40,000 square feet, and you can't do residential and commercial, they gotta both be commercial. Do you see what I'm saying? You've created some nonconformance in uses that already existed, and now they're on a nonconforming lot. So it's just, I think you need to allow mixed use in the commercial. And almost every town in this area did that because the thinking was back in the day, we want commercial businesses. We don't want residential. We don't want to have conflicts between commercial and residential. And we want the revenue from having commercial businesses. But there's not as many offices anymore, you know, so now you see a lot of vacant commercial, right? So that's one example of maybe, but I can think of others too, where certain uses might be appropriate in commercial too, if you can't see them from the road, right? So I think it is something to talk about.
When are we gonna, not just the raw data output, but when will we see the output from the comprehensive plan?
The completion date is set for March, April of 2026.
Yeah.
So they're still doing their work. They've collected all the raw data from the surveys.
Right.
And now they just met with businesses, I think it was a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep, so they're still going through their planning groups.
okay.
So yeah, we're doing the focus groups phase is wrapping up, and then next, now you're gonna start delving into the deeper stuff, like land use and all of that good thing, so.
Okay.
But we still, yeah, we're on track to be finished by the May 2026.
Yeah, the goal is that it's finished in the spring, so we can get it on the May 2026
Yeah.
ballot to be adopted by the town.
Got it.
So that's a year,
Yeah,
and then you have another 6 months.
Right. Before you-
Before anything would go up. You know, if it comes out in May, you're not gonna have the knowledge to create any ordinances until that fall ballot. So it's a long ways out, and I think that I think we need to look at the commercial, and one of the things that I think we need to look at is vegetation.
Is what?
Vegetation.
buffering
Buffering.
As in
and the type.
more or?
Types, yeah, types of vegetation, and create some height. You know what
So,
I?
you know, we just did all those standards and we really increased that substantially.
I know, but when
Are you
I
think
take a
it still
look at
needs
some
to
of the
be
plans
stronger?
that I've reviewed lately, and it's not what I thought that was gonna produce. I think it needs to be tweaked more.
So taller and more robust than what we just did? Well, yeah. That's fine. I'm surprised you're saying that. I think that, yeah, pleasantly surprised. That's my, I'm speechless. Which doesn't happen very often.
Someone, put that
Bye,
in the
Larry,
notes.
thank you.
I think
Yeah, okay. Sorry for running over.
I think that
Did we adjourn?
Yeah, we gotta,
Bye,
Yeah.
Mark.
okay.
Okay. Should we? Okay. We're adjourning. Thank you.